Today, I would like to take some time to chat with you about some pith instructions or methods for changing one's destiny. In this world, there is a saying that destiny is fixed and cannot be changed, but there is also a saying that it can indeed be altered. From the Buddhist perspective, destiny is certainly changeable. The story of Liao Fan's 4 lessons is likely familiar to most of you. So in this human realm, many aspects of luck or fate can be transformed. For example, if someone's destiny indicates they might encounter violence or a premature death, but they later engage in great virtuous actions such as receiving an empowerment, performing significant acts of merit, or joining the monastic order, or practicing life release, the original hexagrams or the unlucky events predicted for their life, or the fortune telling can be changed. You should be aware of this. In this universe, many causes and conditions are interdependent and subject to change. Does this mean all luck can be changed? Not necessarily. Some things may be difficult to alter, such as karma that ripens in this very life, or specific karmic debts that are destined to be experienced in this lifetime. These may simply be impossible to change. Recently, I have heard many people talking about how this is the year of the fire horse, and next year is the red sheep. They worry that these red horse and red sheep years might bring various misfortunes and wonder what to do about it. Others mention that at the beginning of this year's new year, there was a solar eclipse where the sun was obscured by Rahu, as the ancients described it. For the ancients, there were also different views on this. Then during the first month, the first full moon brought a lunar eclipse and the moon turned blood red. So for the ancients, these phenomena were seen as significant omens. Natural disasters and human calamities were feared. Many people also say, "This is my zodiac year, so I might face obstacles." Others say that these past 2 years things haven't been going smoothly. When things are not going well, sometimes it lasts a few months, sometimes just a few days, and sometimes it lasts for several years. People might feel unsettled because of nightmares or because someone gave them a reading that suggested bad signs. In truth, we shouldn't be overly attached to these things. The more you cling to it, as the saying goes, whatever you fear most is what you attract. Being too obsessed with fortune-telling or divination isn't ideal. As for all these various unlucky matters, I don't particularly believe in them in a superstitious way. I'm not the type to seek out readings every day. I'm not that kind of person. However, I don't completely disbelieve them either, because within this universe, some phenomena and movements are quite mysterious. If you completely disbelieve, dismissing all feng shui and destiny, or the worldly signs of good and bad fortune as non-existent, that can't be right either. Indeed, sometimes when obstacles find their way to you, you really do encounter bad luck. So in a sense, we shouldn't be overly superstitious, yet we shouldn't be entirely dismissive either. In everything, we should follow a middle way, thinking rationally and making decisions based on valid cognition. This is very important. Regarding these matters, whether in the Tibetan tradition or the Han region, things like the 9 palaces and 8 trigrams are quite meaningful. I'm not saying everyone must carry one with them, that's not what I mean. But if you are interested, it is actually quite fascinating, because the Manjushri 9 palaces and 8 trigrams actually have diverse origins. For example, historically speaking, according to many ancient Tibetan texts, from the very earliest times, including the time of the first Tibetan king, Nyatri Tsenpo, observations of these omens already existed. Some researchers believe that even before the Shui and Zhou dynasties in the Han region at that time, or perhaps even before, on the Tibetan plateau, there were already methods for observing celestial phenomena. Such views exist. In the Han region, both the 9 palaces and the 8 trigrams were passed down from the Shah and Zhou dynasties, or perhaps even from more ancient primordial times. They have been handed down. This history spans over 2,000 years, and possibly even tens of thousands of years. For instance, the I Ching Book of Changes was highly promoted by King Wen of Zhou, who expanded the 8 trigrams into 64 hexagrams, which became the Zhou Yi. To this day, it remains an incredibly miraculous culture. The I Ching doesn't have one clearly defined author, yet the truths it speaks regarding the nature of all things are remarkably accurate. Since ancient times, many wise people have studied and researched it continuously. Even the many principles within it, including the great master Padmasambhava and generations of Tibetan scholars, held these principles in high regard. Even the omniscient Mipam Rinpoche included these elements in many wealth-summoning rituals or divination methods. As I've mentioned before, materials related to Confucius and the I Ching have been continuously utilized in Tibet. In this case, its history is very long. It's not something we can fully explain in just a sentence or two. And to truly explain these principles requires experts in calendrical calculation who hold a complete and complex theory. Regarding the Manjushri 9 palaces and 8 trigrams, some Terma texts say that during the time of Buddha Shakyamuni, there were written records of knowledge concerning calendrical calculation, celestial phenomena, and geography. This related knowledge was recorded in written form. Later, Manjushri Bodhisattva hid these on Mount Wutai. They were buried as Terma on Mount Wutai. Later, acting on the instructions of Avalokiteshvara Padmasambhava, personally traveled to Mount Wutai. Upon arriving at Mount Wutai, some Terma texts say that at the Narayana cave on the eastern side of Mount Wutai, Manjushri Bodhisattva was there teaching the Dharma to tens of thousands of disciples. He then transmitted to Padmasambhava the various cycles of Manjushri's teachings and many other methods. Padmasambhava brought them back to flourish in Tibet. In this way, according to reliable sources, our current 9 palaces and 8 trigrams came through 2 paths, one being the Terma teachings that Manjushri transmitted to Padmasambhava, which Guru Rinpoche later revealed, and the other path being the rituals Padmasambhava redesigned based on India, Tibet, and the Han region, their different customs and traditions, and the geographic and cosmic structures. He then redesigned many rituals and visualization methods in this regard. Some of these were buried in the earth as Terma for future generations. Others were taught directly in his instructions at that time. In the biography of Padmasambhava, specifically the Pema Kathang, which we often discuss, there is a very long section introducing instructions on the 8 trigrams. So our current instructions are closely related to Guru Rinpoche's Terma and his direct teachings. These have a very close relationship with him. Furthermore, in our science of calendrical calculation, there is a close relationship between the Shui methods of the Han region and the Tibetan methods of calculation. There is a close relationship. Even the calculations in our modern calendars combine the Indian Kala Chakra calculations with the spirit of the Han region's Shui. When these two are combined in this way, they actually offer us a way to understand the truths of the universe, and it is worth our while to understand them. If we were to explain these principles in detail, the content would be vast. We couldn't possibly cover it in 1 or 2 classes. When I first became a monk back in 1985, I was in my hometown listening to the words of my perfect teacher and practicing the 500,000 preliminary practices. There was a local expert, an elderly lama, and I studied with him at that time. I learned the basics of the 8 trigrams from him, how these 8 trigrams are calculated. At that time, I drew out the charts he explained and used them myself afterward. In using them, I found them quite meaningful. When I was a student, I often used the Avalokiteshvara divination. For a period, I also translated the divination methods of Manjushri and Avalokiteshvara. Afterwards, some people found that at critical moments, relying on these methods provided them with much-needed direction. However, some people become obsessed, wanting to perform a divination just to go out and buy something, or even divining before going out to buy groceries, worrying if they'll have a car accident on the way. That is unnecessary. Whatever the case, as I mentioned just before, for major life events, having some knowledge in this area is actually beneficial. So what I want to say to you today is, in this world there are many things that are unlucky or unsmooth, or elements that either support or conflict with each other. When it comes to various interdependent conditions, those who study pramana logic or focus primarily on theory don't care much about these things. However, ordinary people, or those who have just started practicing Buddhism, are often very concerned and observe many signs. Is it auspicious for me to go out today? Is today auspicious or not? If I look at this person I met today through astrology, what is our relationship really like? This extends to marriages, work, and family life for those with a lot of conceptual thoughts. So today I simply wanted to Recently, there are some people who have been asking about this quite frequently. The Manjushri 9 palaces and 8 trigrams actually have many lineages, because there are various different diagrams. Within Tibetan Buddhism, there are also various different depictions. Every treasure revealer or many versions are available in the market. Different textual versions of the diagrams. In shrine halls or in any place, you will also see them as thankars. Typically, a Thankar will feature Manjushri Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara and Vajrapani with the 9 palaces and 8 trigrams depicted below. While the specific details of this diagram may differ between each term or lineage's approach, but regardless, the Han and Tibetan versions are fundamentally very similar. Actually, it might look like a simple little brass mirror, nothing special, but perhaps hidden within it are many of the essences or interdependent origins of the cosmos. So I would like to speak briefly about this. Essentially, inside this image are the 9 palaces. The 9 palaces are actually 9 numbers. Vertically, they are 9, 5, 1. Down the next column is 2, 7, 6, and then 4, 3, 8. These 9 numbers are identical to those used in the 9 palaces of the Han region. However, there is something quite miraculous here. Whether you add them horizontally, vertically, or diagonally, or around the perimeter, they always equal 15. For example, down the center, 9 plus 5 plus 1 is 15. The side column 2 plus 7 plus 6 is also 15. And the other side, 4 plus 3 plus 8 is also 15. If we go diagonally, like 8, 5, 2 or 7, 5, 4, it is the same. So these numbers of the 9 palaces, no matter which direction, horizontally, vertically, diagonally, or around the edges, it always becomes 15. This represents many aspects of the universe, including what we often talk about, the latitudes and longitudes of all things in the world. It primarily represents the various signs of heaven and earth and all phenomena in the world. Inside are the 9 palaces, and behind them are the 8 trigrams. As many of you likely know, what is represented here, the imagery of the 8 trigrams, is clearly explained in the etching and various traditions of the Han region, detailing how many horizontal and vertical lines are used. This is explained quite clearly. So these 9 palaces and 8 trigrams actually encompass celestial signs and all terrestrial signs of our world. The mysteries of earth, water, fire and wind, of thunder, and all the diverse appearances of the world are found here. Surrounding this are the 12 zodiac animals. As everyone knows, the 12 zodiac animals. Encircling the animals are mantras, various mantras of the 5 elements used to harmonize relationships and powers. Behind the entire image is a tortoise. The tortoise is shown lying on its back. In both Tibetan and Han traditions, the tortoise represents the absorption of energy from the entire universe. It carries a wealth of meaning. Its perimeter also features the weapons of Manjushri to destroy all inauspiciousness, while on the other side it represents Avalokiteshvara, using a tree to foster the growth of all things. This tortoise, with its own mouth, swallows all the world's inauspiciousness and ill fortune and calamities. In some versions, it is surrounded by various. In some versions, for example, the 4 sacred creatures, the tiger, the lion, the Garuda, and the dragon. Its open mouth signifies the swallowing of everything inauspicious. It dwells in water with flames burning on its head, representing the elements of earth, water, fire, and wind. The 4 sacred creatures holding the earth also serve to balance the operation of the 4 great elements. They play a balancing role. Furthermore, it takes the form of a round brass mirror. A brass mirror. This mirror, when the Buddha attained enlightenment, there were 8 auspicious signs, and a mirror is one of those elements in the 8 auspicious signs. In reality, this brass mirror also represents many powers. So although it looks like just a small thing, the ones at our Academy's finance office were produced according to the terma of Mipam Rinpoche and Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo, specifically from their terma teachings. Regardless of which great master or which terma text it comes from, the benefits it brings are immense. What are these benefits? In our daily lives, as everyone knows, we might wonder if our journey today will be auspicious or not. Or based on the 8 trigrams, we calculate the month from the year, the day from the month, and the hour from the day. Conflicts between the hour, day, month, and year can bring all kinds of trouble. Then there are human relationships. Perhaps you are a horse and I am a sheep, and there might be a conflicting relationship between us. Even geographically, if my house's door faces north or south, or if there is a building elsewhere with a sharp pointed structure constantly directed at my house, it can create a clashing effect on me. Perhaps my house or the place where I live has an inauspicious history, such as a site of violence or sudden death, or a place where a car accident occurred. Many of us encounter, in terms of time, location, or interpersonal relationships, various kinds of unharmonious interdependent connections. We might also face various physical issues, such as an imbalance of the 4 elements. My body might react to certain conditions. For instance, a place might be very inauspicious for me, while another person finds the same place very auspicious. Those who truly observe Feng Shui or signs of fortune sometimes see things like this. I previously taught Tibetan Pure Land practice, and in the aspiration prayer for rebirth in Sukhavati, it mentions that according to the color chakra view, all phenomena are inherently empty. Yet, while they are empty, within the manifestation of interdependent origination, it is still necessary to observe the timing of our travels and the events we encounter, whether they are auspicious or inauspicious. Such observation methods are also needed. This is also how it is taught. Even in Padmasambhava's other instructions, the color chakra teachings are also quoted to explain this. So I think for many of us, whether we actually have such imbalances or obstacles or conflicts, or if I have a kind of reverse current, things are particularly rough this time. Encountering all kinds of unfavorable circumstances, in these cases this can truly play a role. There are no strict conditions for wearing it. No particular conditions are needed. You can wear it at your waist, keep it in your bag, leave it in your car, or hang it on your door. It functions to transform all misfortune, all obstacles, all ill omens, transforming them all into auspiciousness, power, or tranquility. That is its function. Of course, as humans, you may choose to believe it or not. It doesn't matter. But sometimes I feel from the bottom of my heart that when people are restless and constantly worrying or getting divinations, it is better to sometimes use these methods to pacify those worries. The power of interdependent origination is inconceivable and can settle much. Furthermore, it makes no difference whether you are male or female, old or young, a believer or non-believer. It makes no difference. It might work or it might not, but there is little to lose. So if it is convenient for you to wear one, a paper version is also available. If you find it convenient to wear one, you can do so. I've even seen tiny versions on prayer beads like a calculator, even smaller than a calculator, a 9 palaces 8 trigrams version. These also exist, or you can attach it to a belt or attach it to a car key and so on. Sometimes interdependent origination is truly inconceivable. When I was young, I wore one for a period, even though that was a very specific era. It wasn't seen purely as a religious symbol. At the time where I lived, many children wore them. And some children, according to certain Tibetan customs, for example, in my case, I had an older sister. I never even saw her. I have no memory of her, but my parents said she had already passed away. After she died, according to Tibetan customs, if an older sibling had passed away, the next child might not survive either. So the parents would be very careful with the next child, frequently performing virtuous deeds or even giving a boy a girl's name to help him survive. Where I lived, many were male who originally had male names. Tibetan names are typically things like Vajra or auspicious, but some were intentionally given unattractive names or names from different families specifically to protect their lives. At that time, my parents likely also wanted to protect me, so on my belt I had a small one every single day. And many of our elderly lamas and older people wear them, but some young people today think it looks unattractive and are reluctant to wear it. Others treat it like an ornament, so I don't think it necessarily has to be a brass plaque. Of course, a brass plaque does seem to be specified in the traditional requirements. But if you don't have one, we often use a printed image, for example. You can find them online. A paper version is fine. Or if you have access to such resources. With the blessings of the Sangha, this is also possible, including a consecration ceremony. Then the mantras within it and these interdependent connections become very positive. Although it does contain mantras, generally for items with mantras, wearing them below the waist is generally avoided. There is some question about this. However, many great masters in the past also wore this at the waist. In that case, wearing below the waist when viewed one way, it might indeed seem like wearing mantras on the lower body is disrespectful to the mantras. But viewed another way, the syllable wheels of our human body exist throughout the entire body. For example, there is Oma Humhuri at the head, the channels of the entire body. Even the soles of our feet, all of these have syllable wheels. Therefore, it isn't necessarily disrespectful. So under specific conditions and circumstances, it can actually be placed in different positions. So for many of us who currently feel various kinds of unease or insecurity or concerns related to certain times or locations or worries in various aspects, This is a simple method to use. It doesn't require complex conditions. For example, if you place it on your door, if it faces outward on the door, all inauspicious things from the outside will not enter. If it faces inward, the auspiciousness within will not flow out. The inauspicious from outside will not enter inside. All kinds of ill omens, all inauspicious and unlucky things, all of these can be dissolved into nothingness. If we were to calculate according to the 8 trigrams properly, the methods are incredibly numerous. There are so many ways to calculate. I've noticed that many people in the Han region know how to do these calculations, and in the Tibetan areas people use them too, often calculating directly on their fingers. In a very short time they can figure out how things are going for you, whether it's the right time to travel, your compatibility with another person, and so on. However, I feel that having too many of these conceptual thoughts might not be good. In the past, many people spent every day checking their horoscopes. In fact, the principles of astrology, the Buddha discussed these principles in the Sutra on Constellations and Luminaries. Some say that Western astrology actually has its origins in Buddhism, and it is true that these records exist in both Han and Tibetan Buddhist traditions. But some people calculate every single day. If a Dharma friend sits down next to them, they start calculating, what's your zodiac sign? Oh, we aren't compatible. They even do this with their own family members. This ultimately creates a lot of conflict. It would be better to have one method that can resolve everything. Practically speaking, that is much simpler, and it is simpler for oneself as well. And all those busy conceptual thoughts in this area can be dissolved into nothingness. For example, if you have a protective item in your bag or on your person, you can rely on that when you go out, except for particularly important matters. I generally don't check what kind of day it is. I might only look during a very significant event. Take, for instance, when monastics shave their hair. Some people get very anxious. Is today auspicious or not for a haircut? According to some observations about haircuts, you can't cut hair today, otherwise your head will fall off. That sounds terrifying. But often, after I finish shaving, I'll check the calendar and see, oh, my head is supposed to fall off today. Then I'll feel around and think, it's still there. So I generally don't worry about small things like this. Being in a state every single day of constant conceptual worry is just not necessary. I've heard of some Dharma friends at the academy who used to seek out divinations every single day, getting divinations every day. I'm stepping out for a bit, let's see how it looks. I have this small thing to do. Eventually they get addicted to it. And if you ask too much, the more you seek divinations, perhaps even the divination deities get exhausted. The answers become inaccurate. They might get annoyed thinking you come every day with such trivial matters asking for guidance. Of course, I'm joking about all this. But as for whether auspicious and inauspicious signs actually exist, they certainly do. But even so, we should follow the science of calculation and history without being completely dismissive. There are indeed some mysteries in the world that scientists cannot yet explain, whether it's Feng Shui, the layout of the land, or celestial phenomena, many things that some of today's scientists simply cannot prove. In that case, what may look like just a very small element, it is very likely a form of true energy that absorbs all things in the universe. This energy toward that which is harmful, external harms and calamities of all kinds, it repels or dissolves them. And internally, all the good qualities, wisdom, compassion, positive energy, and so on, it gathers and stabilizes them. Practicing this in terms of interdependent conditions is sometimes easy to do, because nowadays people are very busy, and when busy, if a solution requires something massive, it becomes very difficult. I've sometimes seen situations where a teacher expresses gratitude to a disciple, or in some cases gives an enormous Buddha statue, and I worry about where they will even put it. But generally, having something smaller that can resolve their confusion or resolve their suffering is probably better. Because in the 21st century, especially in this era of AI and rapid technological growth, we should also understand the true mysteries of the universe. In truth, the mysteries of the cosmos are not always visible to the naked eye, nor can they be resolved through conceptual thinking, through crude or simplistic means right away. Sometimes internal and external interdependencies are incredibly subtle and wonderful, including our human body and the external universe. According to the color chakra view, our internal human body corresponds perfectly with the entire universe. when they correspond, if we harmonize our inner mind well, or receive the blessings of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and integrate that into ourselves through a certain method, a person who was destined for a short life might achieve longevity through a special method. In the end, they have attained a long life. Or perhaps you were originally destined to encounter some calamity or some inauspicious events, but through a certain energy that too can be transformed. So we cannot help but believe this, yet we shouldn't be too gullible either. Because in today's world there are people using various pretexts with various agendas telling you all sorts of things. You shouldn't take those too seriously, otherwise they find your weak spot and use it in various ways, much like selling a product. People who are quick to believe are easily exploited by others. So on one hand, we need the wisdom of analysis. At the same time, look at history and study the instructions of different lineages. After doing so, one should basically understand what to do and what not to do. One will clearly understand the principles. This point for us is also very important. This is what we call rational thinking and rational decision making. Once you've made a rational choice, your actions will be in accord with the Dharma. So my main hope here is that everyone attains peace of mind and body, free from the intrusion of disease or any kind of suffering. And I also hope for peace across our entire world. Because currently, internationally and globally, there are various conflicts and wars, unprecedented and terrifying ones. We must all pray for this. It might seem like I am just one small person making a prayer here, creating a small interdependent connection. How could that possibly bring world peace? But you never know. The power of the mind is immense. If everyone makes a virtuous aspiration, throughout the universe a positive force and atmosphere are created. As this field grows larger and larger, the energy of the entire cosmos can shift. At that point, perhaps in the world many auspicious things can happen that bring happiness to sentient beings. So never look down on yourself. I'm just an ordinary person, full of afflictions. What power could my aspiration have? Never think this way. As Mahayana practitioners, we should think every morning, I hope everything I do today benefits infinite sentient beings. Throughout the day, in all our actions, try to maintain that thought as much as possible. And when you go to sleep at night, dedicate all the roots of virtue and merit you've created today, all of these entirely to all beings with whom you have a connection, so that they may be free from suffering and find happiness. It seems like just a very simple way of thinking, but in reality it involves a particularly important practice. So today I simply wanted to share some knowledge regarding the Manjushri 9 palaces and 8 trigrams. Of course, if we truly want to understand this deeply, in Tibetan Buddhism, especially in the great treasury of terma, there are vast numbers of different terma on this subject. In the I Ching and 8 trigrams tradition, there is also much, including people like Nan Huai-Chin and other professors who have spoken on this extensively. In Han Buddhism, masters like Yi Ching of the Tang dynasty and the elder master Hu Su-yun were also experts in Feng Shui and these matters. So in their related records, there is a wealth of information. In particular, the works of the omniscient Mipum Rinpoche contain numerous instructions in this area, the methods of composition and methods of application. These are extremely numerous. So in this area, I haven't translated much of this in the past. Perhaps there wasn't enough time. But regardless, today I wanted to give you some brief direction, since many people have been asking, please don't worry excessively. Is the world ending this year or next? It's my zodiac year, what should I do? But generally speaking, if things aren't going smoothly for you, use these convenient methods, but don't let your mind become obsessed with the thought, I'm having bad luck, I'm having bad luck. Personally, every time my zodiac year comes around, I basically don't pay it much mind. I assume everything will be fine. Still, some things do happen. There was a famous old Lama at our academy who was quite well known. He once made a prediction for me. He would often write things out, and at that time he said, at a certain age you may face a life-threatening obstacle. Later, when I indeed reached that age, I had to undergo surgery. I also remember a Dharma friend who as a child was told, at age 28 you might pass away, but later in Tibet, he received many empowerments from lamas and practiced. Later, when he truly reached the age of 28 during one of our trips together with His Holiness, their vehicle was in an accident on the road. He said later, I was supposed to die this year at 28, but perhaps because of the blessings of His Holiness and the Masters, that Dharma friend did not die. I saw him recently, and he is doing just fine, more than 20 years later. So much of our luck can indeed be changed. The most important way to change it is to maintain a kind heart and reduce anger and getting upset. Getting angry is truly bad for the world and for your health. I have encountered many doctors of both Eastern and Western medicine who have told me, don't get angry, don't lose your temper, otherwise it damages the liver and gallbladder and many other areas. This is even more true for practitioners, so contributing to a peaceful atmosphere for the entire world. Let us all remain calm and composed. In this way, when we encounter certain situations, today I spoke with a Khenpo regarding some construction issues, and he was a bit anxious. I told him, don't get angry. In a little while, this won't even seem like a big deal. We should rely on mindfulness and vigilance to handle things slowly. I try to do the same myself. Sometimes when handling certain situations, if I act on impulse, the way I speak and everything else may not be very respectful, which isn't good. So I hope everyone creates good internal conditions through meditation, quieting the mind through meditation as much as possible. And on the other hand, also utilizing harmonious external interdependent connections. Interdependent origination is inconceivable. Within all things in the world, the Buddha understood all the principles of interdependence. That is why we often have the praise to dependent arising. There are many profound meanings within this that we cannot deny. So understanding this interdependent origination helps us grasp the formation and energy of all things in the world. The theories such as those in the I Ching, the 5 elements and yin and yang, are very important, and we deeply believe in them in Tibet as well. When Princess Wencheng came to Tibet, the study of Tibet's geography and landscape, or the layout and arrangement of each household, including various methods of observation for practitioners, became very prominent in Tibet. Some say Bodhidharma brought the I Ching views to the Han region, but many Tibetan teachings, including some from Padmasambhava's instructions, later also spread to the Han region and to other parts of the world. They have had a certain spread and a certain influence. Even today, many Western countries are taking our Tibetan calendrical calculations and their significance for culture and the world very seriously. So we as humans on this planet should not have a narrow ethnic, global, or nationalistic view that creates barriers by excluding others. In terms of wisdom and compassion, all of humanity is integrated as one. There is no need for narrow boundaries to exclude the blending of cultures. There is no need to reject this. So at any time we should accept any knowledge that benefits ourselves and others. Try to accept it. At the same time, learn about it yourself. After learning, pass this useful knowledge down generation after generation. In this way, although a human life is short, many people, by relying on different interdependent conditions, can live in this world with a long and healthy life. Many things, including wealth, reputation, and status, and even the many difficulties in one's family life, can be transformed. This transformation is vital. In this way, our entire world can become more and more harmonious. All right, that's all for now.
Bandara Banma Sodargye